It is Monday, May 7th, 2018, and this is the Monday Morning Analyst. Welcome, everyone. My name is Luke Thomas. Thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciate it. I'm the host of this podcast. On the docket today, there was some boxing over the weekend. We don't typically get to that anyway. And the fights were fine, but not remarkable. Triple G beating an overmatched opponent, a big heavyweight fight-ish across the pond, but nothing too spectacular. And there was no UFC, and there was no Bellator, but there were some decent regional fights, actually some really good ones over the weekend. So I asked folks on Twitter yesterday, what are some fights or fighters you want me to take a look at? And some of them I just can't get to because it's frankly beyond my understanding of how to really talk about it. Like Tenshin Nasukawa over at RIZIN just did an incredible job, but you need to get a better specialist in striking to really appreciate what he's doing. But there were some other contests from that card, from an Invicta card, as well as an ACB card, that I thought, you know what, here's a little bit of a sampling of what you might have missed, and we can go over that for this podcast. So without further ado, here are three fights maybe you saw, maybe you missed, but are worth talking about just the same. All right, up first, let's talk about Pearl Gonzalez versus Barbara Acioly. This was the sort of feature fight on the card. It was a catch weight of 126.3 pounds because of a bit of a weigh-in snafu, and it ended at 130 into the first round. Pearl Gonzalez, of course, had a run in the UFC. Didn't necessarily go all that great. I don't think it's because she's some kind of a fighter who can't compete at a higher level. I think the issue is really that she wasn't necessarily ready at that time. And this is why, going back to Invicta, of course, she's had a bit of a run there now, this being, I think, the second fight since she returned to the organization, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, that's correct. She also fought at Invicta 28. I think what you're showing is, some people will just never get good enough to compete at a high level. I don't know that that's the case with Pearl Gonzalez. I think she can. She just needed some time to bring the rest of her game along, and this fight is a really strong example of why. Barbara Acioly, much taller, as you can see here. So let's go through this here. We're going to start at 346 of the first round. And what I want to sort of point out here is you're going to see Barbara Acioly a lot taller in the stand-up. Pearl Gonzalez was winning this contest. It wasn't like she was beating her to death, but was clearly getting the better of the exchanges. Not a lot of head movement from Osceola, but neither here nor there. The point being is as follows. She gets taken down, and that's when the fight really goes from not all that great to significantly worse for Osceola. So let's take a look at that now. And as he throws a kick, Osceola catches it, not all that well, actually, and kind of runs her into the fence. And here, she didn't quite lift. Let me pause it right here. She didn't quite lift Osceola off of her feet when she got it, but you got to remember she's really tall. It was enough to get off balance here. And you're going to notice right away, I don't like what I'm seeing from Osceola at all. If you're going to hold a choke on the choking arm, your hips need to be on the same side. So she has the choking arm here, and her hips are on the other side. I'm not saying you can't get it that way. It's just going to be highly unlikely that you do. Pearl Gonzalez, yes, has a hand on the mat, but I wouldn't really worry about it in a context like this. She has crisscrossed her feet to keep a leg. Probably also, I think when you do that for certain people, it can assist in balancing in the position. And you're going to see Osceola, she needs to let go of that head, and she needs to drive that left underhook or even the right underhook, depending on which side she wants to get up off of. Maybe the right underhook first, but nevertheless, you don't want to grab around the bottom of the forearm here. I'm going to put it here. You want to be. You need to have an underhook. You need to have bicep control on that left arm. If you're Osceola, you can't just be letting someone have a hand there because they're going to take that out eventually, or they're going to use it to drive into you. So let's watch what she does here, Pearl Gonzalez. And I think Osceola tries some kind of a lockdown, but there is none there. At least not a very good one. No, there is none there. And you're going to see here. You can see now Gonzalez banging to the ribs of Osceola, and she doesn't let go. Why do you also want to let go here? Because number one, if your choking hand is raised in the air because your hips are on the other side, you're going to have a lot of problems finishing that choke. Number two, if you don't let go of that, you're going to get Von Flued, right? Why? Because to get that choke finished, you have to wrap around they hold on to the guillotine. So it goes around your head. But if you keep it, you can just bring your arm and trap theirs. You're going to see it when the camera switches. You have to let that go. So now she's bringing her base up. Now look at the right leg of Gonzalez. It's on the left hip or next to the left hip. She's going to use that maybe to create a lever for her instep. There's a lot of things she can do, but you can see she's now raising her base up, and that's probably to assist in mobility for some kind of a future pass, maybe to stretch her out. We'll see. But she's making some adjustments here, still banging on the ribs. And look at that. Osceola's not doing anything. There's no choke there. Now what does she get? Now she gets cross-faced. Now the hands come together. If she can separate her body, even she doesn't even need to separate. You saw Brian Barberena finish Sage Northcutt from this very position. All he did was get on his toes to drive into the choke. You can get finished right here. The right arm of Gonzalez around the throat. If she squeezes hard enough and she drives through deep enough, her head is kind of facing down. You can't quite pull it up, but if you can drive it deeper, you might think, oh, I might get choked, but you won't because there's no choke there. And number two, you can then drive that shoulder into her own neck on the other side. So this is just not great from Osceola. And I want to make a point here. You might say, well, Luke, what are you saying? That Pro Gonzalez beat up on somebody who was just deeply outmatched? Yes and no. Yes, I don't think that Osceola was much of a match. I mean, it ended pretty quickly for Gonzalez in this particular context. And we'll see what happens with Osceola. She might improve to be a much better fighter. But here's the deal. The deal is not that, oh, you can't count it because you beat up on somebody who is not on your level. The key is, if they're not on your level, how good do you look? And the point is, she looks good, Pro Gonzalez, because she makes the right decisions. So you go through this, she's going to lock that up. When you get that crossface up there, number one, if you want, you can, as I mentioned, you can go for the Von Flue choke. At a bare minimum, you can also lock her head and neck into position that will allow you to pass below. One thing you should note about Pro Gonzalez, she's good at controlling the upper body while her lower body does the work to pass and escape. I believe she gets an instep pass here, and then there's like a knee cut. I'm trying to see here exactly how she does it. Yeah, so there you can see with the right instep, she's going to press the hips and the leg of Osceola down to the mat, and then I believe she's going to knee cut with that left. She's going to raise her base in the air, and then there we go. Look, here comes her base in the air. You can see her left toes are coming up, and that's putting, look at that. Remember I told you how Brian Barberena was driving into Sage Northcutt? Look at Osceola's head. It's like this. She's getting driven back, and it's going to flatten her back. It's going to hurt. It's going to force her to make some kind of choice here, if she at all can. She's still holding on to this guillotine. Not good. And what you're looking at from Pro Gonzalez here, go back and just look at this leg that she has. She's just inching it. What she's trying to do is drive that wedge with the right instep. The other one is on the ground. The other elbow on the ground. She's locked on that side. The head on the other side, of course, is positioning her as well. She's just trying to get that knee right past the hip line, right about there. And right away, she just knee cuts. And I want you to watch this. Now, this is like 3/4 mount because the leg is trapped. She's probably going to kick it off with the other top leg. Let's see how she gets it. It's a common tactic to just kick it off. Let's see how she does it. She might just pull through. Does she kick it? Can I kick it? Yes, you can. She didn't kick it this time. A lot of times if you can't get that bottom leg through, you'll see people take the top leg, the bottom foot, and they'll just pop it off. It works really well. And this is what I mentioned when I talked about Pro Gonzalez. Yes, even if you have an outmatched opponent, what decisions are you making? She goes right to cover the head. Look at that. Right to cover the head. Now watch what she does with her left arm here. She's going to bring it back through, and she's going to cover the hips of Osceola, because you can see Osceola with that left leg trying to scoot in, right? Trying to get her. What is Pro Gonzalez going to do? She brings it in to cover that, and she's going to go a little bit north-south on her. Actually, she stays to the side. That's interesting. But you can see, so now what's the right arm doing? It's behind the head. What's the left arm doing? It's on the side of the hips. So she's got control one way on the head, control the other way in the hips. What have I always told you in jiu-jitsu? What do you want to control? Head and hips. You control those, you got the whole match usually. And from here, she's just going to step over. Now, this is a bit of a high step. Personally, I wouldn't recommend this as a big dude. Whenever I try this, everybody sees it coming. But if you're quick and your opponent's overmatched, you can get it through. You might say, Luke, what's the alternative to this? The alternative is to take your knee, slide it across their belly, then windshield wiper the leg on the other side. But I am very much nitpicking here, believe me. So now she takes it to mount. Look at this. Her hand is still trapped. She could have been finished a long time ago if Pro Gonzalez really wanted to finish her that way. So I believe she's going to pop her head out here. Yes, she does. And I want you to know something. Now she has a low mount. Let's see what she does first. She gets bucked. She holds position comfortably. 2 hands on the mat. You're not going to buck someone with 2 hands on the mat. You might be able to move them out of position enough to change your underneath position, but you're not going to just buck and roll them over like that. So now she comes and sits up, trying to protect her face, which is understandable. And Gonzalez is just going to start raining down some punishment here as we go through this. And you can see, look at this now. What's the difference in the mounts? Let me go back here just a little bit. When you're, hang on now. Give me a second here, I promise. I gotta have a faster tool for this. Hang on. Okay. When you're here, that's a low mount. Why is that a low mount? Because their hips are connected. When your hips are connected, that means when the person underneath bucks, you're going to go with them. Or at least that's when you're going to get the maximum amount of difficulty riding that position. Now let's go forward a little bit. I want you to see something. She just effortlessly slides up until she gets to a certain point here. Now look at this. That's a high mount, isn't it? And the difference can be subtle, but their hips are no longer attached. The weight is being borne on her knees, not on her hips, sitting on the other person's hips. So that creates space underneath. But the problem is if you're Osceola, she's right underneath your armpits. So she's here on you. Terrible place to be. Terrible place to be. Moreover, this is what Saulo Ribeiro always talks about. This is the way to generate maximum power. If I'm sitting on your hips, I'm secure in a way for different reasons, but I can't really do a lot of damage. I need to get up high underneath your armpits. I need to then create a little space underneath, but as the mat and my knees come together, that's when you can rain maximal damage down. So just watch this, and this is where she starts to just really put it on her. So you can see she bucks a little bit here. Now that's a decent bridge. That's a decent bridge by Osceola, but it's never going to be enough. Right, look at that. She gets it's a pretty decent bridge, right? She gets some thoracic extension there. But the thing is, from here, I want to be decent about this whole thing. From here, you can see she's on the balls of her feet. It's a decent bridge, but the point being is she now has to turn underneath. You created space, you got their weight going forward. That's just step one. There's a step 2 and a step 3 and a step 4 here. A lot of people don't realize that, and they just kind of flop back down. And that's it. They think if I just drive you forward, that'll be enough. You got to drive and turn, drive and shrimp, drive and drive again, side to side. Mount escapes are very, very difficult. And she gets decent extension. She tries this time now to walk to the fence. She's going to have this overhook sort of on one side, right? And Pro Gonzalez now back to a lower mount again, right? Banging on her. Now here she makes a bit of a mistake. Why? Because she reaches for this arm. It's the close arm to her, but the thing that's kind of interesting is everyone's got their preference, but whatever side you're going to drop to, everyone's got their preference, But if I'm dropping to that same side, there's no right or wrong answer. I don't believe about this, but I like to grab with the outside arm on their outside arm. In this case, I would be switching a little bit. I would have my right arm on Osceola's left arm. And you might say, what are you doing with your left arm? Well, here's the thing. Look at her. She's got her weight on her knees now. Well, now this is not good. Your weight can be on your knees if you have a nice high mount. If you're just banging down on them like that, like she was before, perfect, right? Amazing. But one of the things that you need to do if you're going to switch to the arm bar is you got to have your weight up and you got to lean forward a little bit. That's going to drive their elbow across, right? So here, there's nothing driving the weight of, there's no weight behind it, behind the back of the arm of Osceola, right? If someone grabs it and they have a nice high mount and then they lean forward on my arm, well, now look at my arm. First of all, it's going to be pushing into me. It's already across, and as you lean forward, not only does this get you halfway to the armbar position, it's also a bit of an anchor. Rather than just kind of holding the arm and then dropping a knee where there's not as much control and there's not as much weight being put on top of you. And as a consequence, you see that? Look, there's nothing holding her. She loses it in the process. It's hard to control. Osceola just pulls it right out. You see that? So whenever that's why you might see a lot of times from mount, you might see like an S mount that people do, right? Where they S their legs a little bit. And the reason why they might do that is because it controls everything. It allows them to sit forward, even if you buck and I've sat forward. Now I've attached my body to you. I've leaned into you. So that by the time I want to lean back, everything's nice and tight and I can do it in a slow, controlled, methodical way, right? So that part was not great. This is a mistake she makes here. She kind of just sits out. And Osceola wisely comes back on top. Now, this is good from Gonzalez. She recognizes she made a mistake. Boom, I'm going to drive my hips right back into her. And this is where Osceola should have said, I want to keep my elbow where it's at, but I want to scoop my hips back. I want to come out in a safe way. Instead, she just kind of comes out a little bit and then just leans forward. And poor Gonzalez snatches up the triangle. Very, very nice adjustment. Sure, she made an error, but she recovered really quickly. Just a superior grappler. This is just big bank take little bank. She fixes it, and I like what she's doing with her left foot. You may say, oh, Luke, she's not doing anything. Yes, she is. A lot of people, will, when they get a triangle, they'll kind of point their feet outright like this. No. Bring it up to the sky. When you do it, everything will get tighter underneath, especially on your hamstrings. That's exactly what she's doing there, right? So nice job by her. She can't quite get the arm across because she had to recover position. So totally forgivable there. And you're going to see Osceola try to bring it underneath herself right there because now she wants to hold it together. So look at what Osceola's doing. Osceola is getting her hands together underneath to try to prevent it. Meanwhile, this is fine if you just want to survive, but you're not going to win this way. So here she is, just crushing her with these elbows, right? Boom. Going to work on them. Osceola has her hands together, right? Which is fine as, again, if you want to just survive, but it's not good for much else. There's nothing there. Your hands are literally occupied. And you'll be saying, oh, Luke, what's the defense here? I mean, it's a sort of Kurt Pellegrino thing, right? Like, you effed up a long time ago if you're here. So she's banging on her here. She readjusts the triangle, comes back down, right? The key here is going to be that armbar switch. Let's look at that armbar switch in just a second. This is the one thing I love. So the hands are now apart from Osceola as she went to punch, right? There. Nice. Okay. This is an interesting armbar when you have 2 feet, or legs, I should say, across the face rather than one across the body. In some ways, it's better. In some ways, it's worse. I mean, and this is just my opinion, right? So here's what I love about this armbar from Pearl Gonzalez. Whenever you get this armbar, it's very deceiving. And the reason why it's deceiving is because, how do I explain this exactly? Okay, if Osceola just cleared the right leg off of her face, this armbar is over, right? All I have to do is just pop it off, okay? And turns the corner. You're actually going to see she tries to do something similar but doesn't get it right. Look, she's going to bring her left knee up and try to come around. You see that? Because she can't, she's trying to come around the corner. If I was trying to pass guard, you always want to drive someone's knee into their face or someone's knee into their shoulder. Once you've driven that leg back, then you turn your hips around the corner, right? She tries to do something like that. Instead, she just kind of turns on an axis. You got to drive that knee back, and then you got to turn your hips over, and you got to get that off your face. We always talked about it. When that leg comes over the face, we saw it last week with Lovato Jr., you know, that's when you can sit up. But if you don't have that you're going to be in some trouble. But there's less security here because 2 are over the face. So if you just pop one off, you're in good shape. But here's the thing that Pearl Gonzalez does really well here, up until a point. Again, I'm nitpicking here, right? But here's what I love about it. I've talked about it before. Gary Tonin has made this point, and it's just brilliant. Control over the arm matters, but what really matters most in an arm bar is knees pinched and hamstrings engaged. When the legs bend. What is really disconcerting about this armbar is if you're caught in it, to really make sure someone can't turn that corner, unless they're like super, super good, is you got to really get down and bend their posture. What's important when you're guard passing? Hip control and head control. Controlling that neck. Look at the neck of Osceola. It's getting bent like that, right? That is very disorienting when you're there because it feels like you're going to get pulled off your base. It feels like you can't move your hips properly. To an extent, you actually can't. That's why getting that off your face. And here's the other problem. Usually when someone gets that, the elbow is so far through that they don't even worry about popping this off their face. They just try to put their hands together as a last-ditch effort. You see here she's done that because it's so hard. It's so disconcerting when it's crunching your neck like that. Well, one thing I don't like about this armbar from Pearl Gonzalez is this. She stretches out straight like that. I think she did it because she wanted to get the arm as close to her as possible, and I think the other reason why she wanted to tip over Osceola. Again, who am I to say? I've never fought professionally. This is just my opinion for whatever it's worth. My personal belief is this is something that on the gi you can catch a lot of people with. If you can get a cross grip and then one underneath the armpit, same foot on the same side as the arm, and you pull someone out, a lot of times they're going to try and stand. And what it enables you to do is switch into the armbar this exact way, right over the face. The key there for again, I am nitpicking here. This is just something I notice a lot about arm bars in MMA. The key for me is I don't really worry about tipping them over. Just crunch on the head, get them to look this way, and even if you stay vertical, you're going to get that arm bar. You don't actually need to tip them over. So, I'd give Pearl Gonzalez here at worst an A- for her overall performance, probably an A. Couple of mistakes here or there. This one worked, so in the end, you got to respect it. My whole thing is, I would just say, whenever you see an armbar straight out like that, somebody really, really good is probably going to get out of that. Because, again, the straighter your legs are, the less your hamstrings are engaged. The less your hamstrings are engaged, the easier it's going to be to pop that leg off the face, right? But it didn't matter because look how deep the arm is of Osceola. She was real lanky, and Pro Gonzalez got her. So, overall, nice performance from Pro Gonzalez. I'm nitpicking a little bit. I hope everyone understands that. Just because, you got to find something to criticize, I suppose. But in the end, a lot of good work here, and particularly on the mount, keeping it, using it. Transition was a little bit off, but she recaptured it nicely, went underneath. A lot of good work here from Pro Gonzalez. She has shown a tremendous amount of progress since going back to Invicta. I think it was the right move for her, and I definitely think you're going to see her in the UFC again. Next, we look at Kyoji Horiguchi versus Ian McCall from RIZIN 10 over the weekend. And a 9-second fight. Not even a 9-second fight, really less than that if you count some of the other things. Not a lot of footage to look at here, but we're going to go through it just the same here. Oop, oh, hang on. Let me turn that off. There we are. Sorry. Okay, so let's look at this. Here's what you're going to see. What stands out to me about all of this is, well, yes, Horiguchi has been a revelation since moving to RIZIN, and he's only getting better. But that's not what stands out about this particular exchange. Rather, in this moment, what I really like about it is how quick he makes computations. So watch what Ian McCall does here. You look at him, you see him trailing that left leg back. He bounces right, the left leg comes back. Right? He's going to do it again. Watch him, and he steps. He's trying to set the angle. He's the left-handed fighter. That left straight is going to be money, but you just got to find the right angle for it. So he jumps to the right, and trails the left. So jumps to the right, trails the left. And what he's trying to do is he wants to get his foot to the outside, his lead foot, to the outside of the lead foot of Horiguchi, which he does, right? Watch this. He's going to switch his feet, sets the angle. You see that? Switches the feet, sets the angle, flash the jab. Horiguchi dodges it, and he runs into the left hand, boom, and drops him there. Now let's go through this a little bit from different angles in slow motion because it's worth taking a look at, and he follows him up, and poor Ian McCall, what do you want to say about it? Okay, look at this one more time. You see him. He wants to keep cage cutting. He doesn't want to just follow him in a circle, which he does a good job of. Here he is. Sets the trailing left leg back. Steps to the outside. So now he's got that angle. Look at the foot of Ian McCall. It's to the outside, right? And you can't see from this angle, which we'll look at in just a minute, but he flashes the jab and then comes with the left. Horiguchi leans off center and catches him with that punch. So why is this a function of computation? It's just a single punch, really, that Horiguchi throws, and it's not some like crazy magnificent punch. It's a great punch, but it's not, it's not the kick that Tenshin Nasukawa threw. It's not like that. Here's what makes it so amazing. He read so quickly the footwork and the positioning of McCall. He read that the jab was just a decoy, knowing that the left straight was going to come down the pike, meaning he then had to get out of the way and throw a counter shot on top of that. He made all those computations like that. Very impressive. Very, very, very impressive. It's not that the punch itself was like the Infinity Gauntlet of Thor, just bang, snapping and killing off half of life on Earth in one go. No, that's not what it was. It was that his brain. You ever seen that meme where it's the Galifianakis from, I don't know what movie it's in, I guess one of the Hangover movies, and you see all of these equations floating in space? That's what this is for Kyoji Horiguchi. He's reading this in real time and just makes a split-second decision. This is what used to be amazing about Jose Aldo, was that he had good, what I call reflexive decision-making. He could make decisions quickly, almost in a way where it looked like it was reflexive, but it was just fast computations. You take a few minutes to do long division in a piece of paper. A computer can do it like that. That's where we're getting at here with Kyoji Horiguchi. That's what made this so good. Let's watch it from another angle, and hopefully they show me the side one here, because that's the one that matters, right? Here he celebrates. It's amazing. All right, watch. From this angle. So here he comes. Look, we already talked about him setting the feet, through the jab. Watch Horiguchi. He already knows what's coming. He already made a decision. He leans. And look, he doesn't even look at it. Boom. Didn't even look to his left. Muscle memory. Reflexive decision making. That's what made it so good. Right? And drops him. Boom. Heavy, heavy shot. I like those green gloves from RIZIN too, by the way. Look, the angle is going to come. He steps to the side. Boom. It's because he got beat positionally, but he read the counter and made a decision so quickly that McCall was already pot committed. That is exactly what happened here. That is vicious, man. When you can make decisions like that so quickly, your opponent is just hopeless. And, McCall's a good fighter, and he was trying to do the right thing, trying to set the angle, Look, it flashes the jab, and Horiguchi just reads it. Doesn't even see the face he makes contact with. Let me finish this up. There's one more look at it I want you to get. He pulls this off. Here, this is the one. Look at this. Watch McCall's feet. Right? Look there. He gets it. He has the angle. But by the time he sets the angle, Horiguchi has already read that this was coming and decided to give it to him, the position on the feet, while landing that punch at the same time. Look at that. Pretty amazing. The big lesson there, it's not that Horiguchi might flash you and wow you with Tenshin Nasukawa acrobatics, although maybe you could do that too sometime down the line. It's that up here he can make decisions lightning quickly. And last but not least, we look at Askar Askarov. This he faced Rasul Baskinov, or Khanov, however you want to pronounce it, at ACB 86 over the weekend, winning by what's called, they said, technical submission guillotine choke. It's because he put him to sleep. He is 10-0, Askarov, so he's already on his way to being something kind of special. But this was really interesting to me. We're going to start this at 4:33, and we're going to jump around because there are some periods on the ground that are just kind of they're stalling a little bit. But you'll see that his opponent, and again, Baskinov, I believe is how you pronounce it, Rasul Baskinov, yes. You're going to see there are some parts where he does the better of the work, but it's pretty impressive nonetheless. So he chases down a double here. And I'm not going to stop a whole lot of... hold on. I'm not going to go through the entire thing in slow motion because I don't think there's a point to that necessarily, but I just want to point out just over in time some of the good things you're doing. So he tries for a Kimura here from half guard, but when you can see the Kimura, when you're up like this on it, you don't really have a whole lot. You have to kind of dig. And one thing here you can notice, when you dig like that, when you have to go over to dig for a Kimura from side control like that, what do you notice? The guy on top has all of your ribs to cover the space if they're doing it right. So I'm not saying there's no case to go for Kimuras from half guard. It's a common thing people do. It's just that there are some better ways to do it, and some guys don't like it at all, which is kind of interesting here because he's actually going to get his guard passed. You're going to see Baskinov. This is the guy on top, Askar Askarov, the one underneath. He loses it because he goes for the pass. He tries to recover to mount. Askarov keeps sort of struggling underneath. By the way, these are two very good fighters. So now he's got controlled position from side control, and now he tries to go for the Kimura sweep, but he's got no guard. This is not a good idea, and it won't work. Why? Because he's posting on his head to prevent him from going. But all we'd have to do is take his left arm out and put his left arm on the mat, right? And that would stop the whole thing, which you'll see he does. Now look at his left arm. Askarov is trying this. He can't get it. That left arm is just going to be the positioner. You're going to hold it inside the ribs nice and tightly, like you see right there. And now he's back to half guard. Let's see what he does. He tries it again. Now look at the left hand of Baskinov. Just put it right on the mat, right? Stops it. It's dead in its tracks. You're not going to beat this, ever. You might break the shoulder if you're someone's like, Hulkamania strong, but whatever. And so then, of course, he goes to guard. We won't watch a whole lot of this. Let's see what happens. He tries to go, it gets past. These two are good fighters. Throws the leg by. He decides to go to his base to stand. Askarov fighting 2-on-1 here, right? But he can't quite get up. He has to be careful. And then you see Baskinov driving the shoulder, coming around. Look at this, and going back and forth. Even when let me go back here just a little bit. This is just a nice sequence where some stuff worked, some stuff didn't. but it was how high level it all was that mattered in the end, right? So look at this. This is nice. Let's see here. So we're here, and you see Baskinov. Look, he's driving that shoulder in. He's going to whip around the corner as he comes up, right? He gets to his base. Oops. Sorry, hold on. I'm still going backwards. All right, here we go. Driving him down. You're going to see him whip around the corner. He slides that knee through, comes around like that, tries to go for wrist control. He's got his hips, puts a hook in on the same side. You see him, he's going to sort of semi kind of Granby roll, and at the same time he does, it's not really a Granby roll, and at the same time Baskinov comes to the side, tries to pass, and Askarov catches him and brings him back to full guard. Pretty nice sequence there, you have to admit. So let's see what happens a little bit further in the fight. He's going to try and push him off. Watch this scramble, pushes him off, right? Tries to stand, can't, so tries to reestablish the takedown, turns into him, tries to pull away, and as he pulls away, now Baskinov shoots back into him, gets a bit of a sort of a single leg or ankle pick there, and then turns the corner on him and comes right back on top. Tries to pass, and Askarov keeps the hook in to prevent that, pushes him back, and he's back to full guard. Pretty nice work there. These are very skilled fighters. All right, and towards the end of that first round, let's see, he's got a sort of a knee shield there. He's going to try and push away, and then you see when he has this knee shield, you could see Baskinov brings that knee in and to the chest, and you can use that to sometimes turn people and pass. He uses it to extend. Askarov does, tries to stand again, can't quite get it, gets whipped down, headlock, tries to hit a slide by, gets hit with a left hook, and then he's back in on an ankle, right? Picks him up and turns him over. It's just really nice work. And then here he goes for what looks like a triangle and an armbar. Same armbar we saw from Pro Gonzalez, right? Look how deep that is. Watch how he handles it this time. Turns him over and then whips around. This is another way to get defense on it. You just have to be careful when you go belly down like that because you can still get, you can badly break somebody's arm. And then he goes for an Iranian here, which is a wrestling move, sort of. It's a modified Iranian. And then he comes back on. I mean, look at these scrambles. These are unbelievable scrambles, right? And now Askarov is on top. So almost in a crucifix, not quite. And just kind of bangs him out from there. Pretty nice stuff. Let's see what he does to finish the round. I don't think we're going to watch the whole thing. Loses a mouthpiece, it looks like. Look at that. Perfect attempt. No, I can't say perfect. Very good attempt. So watch. You've got Baskinov underneath, right? He tries to put his foot and buck because he wants to get he wants to get that full guard, right? Askarov reads the bump and decides that's what I'm going to bring in my leg. He knew that bump was coming, and he just waited for it. But nevertheless, Baskinov has that left knee in that stops the hips of Askarov from going any more forward. So, tries to sit up, right? Turns him over, butterfly guard. He's going to try and pass here, and that knee just kind of saves him there at the very end. Look at that. It was pulling in just right past it. And we're in the second round, right? He shoots. And Askarov does a much better job of getting one underhook but not staying 50-50, getting that second underhook. That was the one he needed in the first round, and he wasn't getting it. Then he throws him by, and now he gets on top. That second underhook was what he needed. And by the way, you can see he's passing now because he's controlling the head, or at least he was temporarily. He kind of let it go, but you get the idea. He tries to sit up for a guillotine, uses that to stand. Askarov grabs the leg, uses that to trip out the post, pulls it up. He tries to roll forward. Askarov now has one hand on the hips. That's what he's doing here. That right arm of Askarov, if he wants it, not only can control the hips a little bit, it can be a placeholder for him if he wants to take the back for his right leg. Right? I'm not sure that's what he's going to try and do here. And you can see Baskinov is just desperately trying to get that single leg, suck it to his body. He's going to do the check your oil bit, rotate his hips over. Okay? Here he comes in. Same thing. Bit of an illegal shot there. Now watch. We talked about it. That overhook is fine for a temporary moment. You got to drive your hips in, and you got to get double unders on this dude because otherwise he will just find a way in. Let's see what he does. He's dropping his hips all the way to the ground too, right? So let's see. 2 underhooks, just like that. That's how you control this guy. You don't always need it, but it can be a nice opportunity. And then he uses that to transition. I don't know if you guys saw that. Here's the underhook. Watch. He's going to step to the left, right? Use that to then slide through that right hand. Look at that. How nice is that? He's got the double unders, yes? Watch it again. Steps, slides, catch. And he catches with that stand there. It's going to allow him, you'll see here, to then create a post if he wants to then slide on top of. Although it's not really necessary, but he does it. Now he's got what's called, I've always called it a power guillotine. There can be different names for it. But I've always called that a power guillotine. It's the rear naked choke grip on a front headlock or a front guillotine. I guess it's the only kind of guillotine. Anyway, I've always called it a power guillotine like that, right? That's what I've called it, is always a power guillotine. Now watch what he does here with it. It's an interesting finish. A lot of times you can just sort of lean up into it, and that is enough if you want. Although it's not a thing that people commonly hit. You can see him try and step around. The whole time it's a little bit over the jaw, right? And so what he does, he falls to his side here. This is kind of interesting. And then rolls him a little bit like this. What does that look like? Even including the defense of pressing the hips away. Looks like Tony Ferguson's Darce on Edson Barboza. It's almost the way he finishes it here, like a no-arm Darce. Kind of bizarre, right? And that's enough. Lets it go. Boom. He's sleeping. Two talented fighters, man. These guys coming out of the Caucasus region, or wherever these guys are from, but certainly the ACB recruitment of fighters from Russia and other parts of the world they're in, they are talented dudes. And this was a nice back and forth between these guys. Askar Askarov getting a little bit of the business given to him in that first round, but then comes out in the second round, makes the adjustments, and has a nice win. So there you go. 3 fights, maybe you saw, maybe you didn't, but a little bit of examination of them just the same. And last but not least, we take a look at what's coming up in the weekend ahead. By the way, I know it's boxing, but it's always worth paying attention to. TJ Dillashaw training partner Vasyl Lomachenko returns to ESPN when he takes on Jorge Linares. So be on the lookout for that. There's some other boxing events as well, but that's just one that should be on your radar. And of course, that will air on ESPN. Bellator 199, the continuation of the Heavyweight Grand Prix, is this weekend at the SAP Center in San Jose, California. Ryan Bader takes on Muhammad Lawal. John Fitch is in Bellator now, taking on Paul Daly. Chet Congo versus Javi Ayala. Adam Piccolotti is back. I think very highly of him, taking on Carrington Banks. And then Aaron Pico, folks are sleeping on that, returns to the cage against Lee Morrison. Then UFC 224 at the, forgive my pronunciation, Jeunesse Arena in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Amanda Nunes takes on Raquel Pennington in your main event for the women's bantamweight title. Jacare Souza takes on Kelvin Gastelum. Mackenzie Dern versus Amanda Cooper. John Lineker versus Boom Brian Kelleher. Vitor Belfort versus Lyoto Machida. Then you drop to the FX preliminary card, not FS1. Cesar Ferreira taking on Carl Robertson. Alexei Olenek takes on Junior Albini. Davi Hamosh takes on Nick Hine. Elizu Zaleski dos Santos versus Sean Strickland. Then on Fight Pass, Varley Alves versus Sultan Aliyev. Talis Leites versus Jack Hermanson. Alberto Mina versus Ramazan Emiv. And then Marcus Perez takes on James Boknovic. All right. A lot to get to this weekend. Not a whole lot from this past one, but we're back in the saddle again. So appreciate you guys watching. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What'd you like? What'd you not like? Shoot me an email, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. And yeah, that's it, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in. And until next time, enjoy the fights.